When it comes to the national data around how much venture capital is invested into Black-owned businesses, the numbers are abysmal. Then, when you look at the data at a segment and to see how much venture capital is invested into Black women-owned businesses, the numbers are untrackable because it's so small. Yet, Black founded businesses are one of the fastest growing segments within our country, and Black consumers are some of the most loyal consumer demographics. So, how can venture capital not see the opportunity when it comes to investing into Black owned businesses? Well, while it might not be the only case for the lack of investment capital, the passion and loyalty of the Black consumer might just be contributing to the lack of venture capital investment of Black founded businesses. Hello, I'm James McKinney, the creator and host of the Startup Story podcast and founder of Grindology. Every week, I sit with a successful founder to unpack their entrepreneurial journey that led them to build the incredible businesses and brands that they have. With over 120 episodes and almost 100,000 listeners across the UK, Australia, and the United States, we have been fortunate to have some of the most amazing founders join the show. And just recently, I had the chance to speak with Renee Blewett, creator of the She Did That platform that produces the podcast, as well as the She Did That documentary, of which Renee was the executive producer for. She Did That focuses on telling the entrepreneurial stories of brands and businesses that are founded by Black female founders. During my full interview with Renee, we cover quite a few topics related to the journey of Black entrepreneurs in the US, and you can access this episode via the link below this video. One of those topics that we talk about is investment capital. The headline we always read about is that the percentage of venture capital being invested into Black-owned businesses is incredibly low as compared to other founder demographics. But what we don't hear a lot of discussion about is trying to figure out some reasons for this. Well, Renee and I spent some significant time discussing this topic, and I wanted to bring you a segment from our discussion together. Let's get right into our time together with Renee Blewett. One of the things that I love, and I'm going to keep saying it, for those who are listening, check out the She Did That documentary. It is incredibly well done. The stories are remarkable. Carol's daughter's story, the Lip Bar story, I mean, all of them are fantastic. But the Carol's daughter story resonated with me because of an interview that I did with Quentin and Taryn Lewis of Urban Eden. And in that conversation that I'm sitting with them, I asked them the question, where is Urban Eden in 5 years from now? And Taryn said, well, we'd love to sell to a larger brand. And Quentin brought up the challenge that Black startups have when it comes to acquisitions because the consumers are so passionate about Black-owned businesses. And then when they sell to the larger conglomerates, they're viewed as a sellout. And that was the first time I had heard that. And I began to process the circular effect of that thinking and that consumer buying. And then to see Carol's daughter's story similar to Urban Eden's feedback, in that when she sold to L'Oreal, again, chance of the sellout and all the things. Again, I don't know what the consumers did with regards to that, but I hear from the Shea Moisture brand, when they sold, it was the consumers just dropped off. It was no longer a Black-owned business. And so, for someone who has spoken to so many Black female founders, and I'm going to say Black founders in general, I know most of them are female, but let's just say Black entrepreneurs in general, is that truly a common consumer behavior? And do you also see it as a challenge for Black businesses when it comes to an exit strategy?
Mm-hmm. Well, it is absolutely a thing in our community. And, you hit the nail on the head. There's so much pride that we have in being able to say, for example, that, like, oh, this shirt was created by a Black female designer, or these pillows on my sofa were designed by a Black woman. Because for the most part, we don't have as many opportunities to say that as other people would in this world. And so when we are able to say that your favorite hair care brand is created by a Black woman, or these earrings, like, there's so much pride in it that when that is no longer the case, it feels very personal. It feels like a loss for the entire community. And unfortunately, the people who are feeling that loss, may not also be people who are well versed in what happens behind the scenes of even your favorite brands, the bigger brands like Carol's Daughter. No one understands, some of the financial hardships that she may have gone through behind the scenes. From bankruptcies to, having to close down certain stores. It's a lot. And the only way that you're going to scale a business is by getting some investors at some point and or selling it. And in Lisa Price's case, I think that she did what was right for her brand, for her family. And it's really not for us to judge, especially if we're not, the ones taking on the burden and the stress of keeping this business alive and growing it. Um, People have to make those decisions for themselves. But unfortunately, especially now, in the time of internet and cyberbullying and keyboard gangsters, people just have a lot of ugly things to say. Some people are just honest about their disappointment, but then some people, it just becomes like a personal attack on that entrepreneur. And Lisa Price dealt with that. There were times when she was the bigger person and just didn't read the comments. And she shared times when she came in and like felt like she had to defend herself. So that is a truth in our community, unfortunately. But I would hope that, as our businesses continue to scale, that this narrative becomes more common and it's not as jarring and it's not, looked at in a negative way. And we understand that this is, the part of a cycle for a business. I say this in the film, but a lot of us look at entrepreneurship as like this till death do us part experience. And that's not what it's supposed to be. We're humans. Even if you were super passionate about something when you launched it 10 years ago, you have every right to have other interests, and you are not required to continue carrying the this business that perhaps you're no longer even invested in, in the same way.
How do we bring balance to it to where there's always a pursuit of black founded businesses because they're profitable businesses, because they have incredible consumers that are loyal to the product, not the color of the founder. How do we do that? How do we get there?
That's a good question. I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I know that there's no shortage of black owned businesses, particularly black women owned businesses. Black women prior to the pandemic, and even with the pandemic, we're still the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs. But there was a time where we were launching, like, I think the number was like 783 businesses a day. And so with that in mind, even with this pattern of, if a business gets sold, we're no longer supporting. I think that it may not be that we're now, buying Dove. We may just be buying another black owned business, another black owned product that may not be as big, that may be like a more of a startup brand. I'd be interested in seeing the numbers of like, if we left a Shea Moisture, for example, because it was acquired by Unilever, are we going to Dove? Are we going to Suave? Or are we finding another smaller black owned brand to shop from?
Yeah, that would be a fascinating data point, because I think there's so many dials that have to be turned in order to bring balance into this entrepreneurial life cycle. Because to your point, for those that have never tried to build a business, they just do not understand how hard this is. And
Yeah.
so, a lot of times the goal is an exit, right? The goal is an acquisition or going public or whatever the case may be. But we don't tend to walk into our venture thinking this is a legacy business. This is something I want to grow and hand off to kids. That tends to not be the framework, especially today, in the current era. And so I think we need to start turning those dials to understand how can we create this healthy life cycle so that more black owned businesses are coming up, so that more venture capital is going in, because there's proven acquisitions, right? There's proven exits. Because that's, for me, When Quentin and Taryn Lewis from Urban Eden first brought this to my attention, this consumer behavior element, the first thing I went to is like, I wonder if that's why venture capital is not just dumping tons of money in, because they only care, how am I getting my money back?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, they want to see that, you're exiting your business at some point. From what I understand, that's when it becomes really profitable for them. So, if you're thinking about Black women owned businesses and you look around and you don't see us really exiting, I think that for some of them, that could present a challenge when they think about, ROI.
I hope you found this content helpful. And if you did, then please make sure to subscribe to the Startup Story podcast on your podcast platform of choice so you can hear Renee's episode in its entirety. We discussed some incredibly important topics within her episode, and I'm confident that you will find the full episode incredibly helpful and very enlightening. The entrepreneurial journey is not linear, and we need to do a better job trying to understand the nuances of the journey so that we can come alongside and provide assistance wherever possible. I hope you'll subscribe to this show as well as follow us on all the many social media platforms. I say it in every episode because I believe it with my very being. Entrepreneurs support other entrepreneurs, and we're here to support you.